Hi, this is Bob Papa, voice of the New York Football Giants, and this is the Big Blue UK and Ireland podcast.
Welcome back, Giants fans, to our preseason interview series. Joining me for this episode, I've got Shaun alongside me, fellow member of the UK Giants group. Thanks for joining me, man. How you doing?
I'm doing well, doing really well. Happy to come on and talk Giants football with you guys. Big fan of the show, so yeah, it's nice to come on and, like I said, talk Giants football.
I appreciate the love, man. We like to reach people in all corners of this country, so it's great to have you on. It's great to chat with you and find out a little bit about you and your Giants fandom as well. And this series is set up. We sort of set up. There's a little bit of fun to chat with fans, to chat with fellow people, fans around the UK, across the pond. Content creators as well that we know, and there's been some other special guests as well we've lined up throughout this series as well, and it's been a lot of fun. And we hope you enjoy coming on as well this evening. We've got sort of 5-ish questions for you, and then we'll have a little quick fire round at the end with some predictions. Sound good to you?
Sounds good to me. But just to touch on the episodes that you've already done, I've listened to them all, and I think it's brilliant, to be honest. Getting all these Giants fans together, some people that I've never really heard of, and probably a lot of people have never heard of me. So it's great that we can bring us all together.
Absolutely, mate. They say football's family, and I think it's even more so over here. Because it's such a niche market still, and especially following the team like we do. It's we live and breathe New York Giants, and I'm sure you're the same as well. And I think it's testament to us here in this country that we love this sport as much as we do. So it's great to have you on. It's going to be great to hear your side of things as well, and to hear why you are a Giants fan. But yeah, tell us about why you're a Giants fan, how long you've been a fan, and what made you get into the game.
So every time I ask this question, I usually start off by saying it's not been that long, but then now we're at 10 years, so it actually has been quite a while. And I think that comes from knowing a lot of people who've followed the sport from essentially since they came out of the womb. They've followed it their entire life, both this side of the pond and the other side. But yeah, 10 years. It's been 10 years. 2014 was the first year that I sort of got into NFL as a whole.
Cool.
Which was a bit of a weird story. So I was working in William Hill, which is a betting shop at the time.
Yep.
And it was a slow Sunday afternoon in February. And they have like these voiceovers that come on and they just talk rubbish most of the time. When you work there, if anyone who's worked there will know exactly what I'm talking about. And they usually just do your head in. And this Sunday, it was Super Bowl Sunday as it happened. And they were just talking about it all day. I got to the point where I was like, I need to see what this is all about. They kept talking about, they had like American commentators coming on and getting really excited about it, as you can imagine. And I thought I'm gonna have to see what this is about. So because I worked in the bookies and I enjoy a bet myself every now and again, probably more so than I should. And I dipped over the road to the competition shop because we're not allowed to bet in our own shop. Stuck a bet on and thought I'm going to watch this tonight. So stayed up incredibly late. And loved it, absolutely loved it. Loved the whole thing. The year I watched it, it was the Bruno Mars halftime show as well, which I enjoyed. Probably one of the better ones. Some of them have been pretty good.
Broncos Seahawks, right?
Broncos Seahawks, yeah. Which was, when I look back now, was actually a terrible game from a fan's perspective because it was so heavily one-sided.
First snap of the game, safety.
Oh yeah, it was unbelievable. One of the most. Well, you look back now and you understand it more, and you think, I don't entirely sure what I enjoyed because realistically, unless you're a fan of the Seahawks, that was a pretty poor game. But yeah, stayed up, loved it, watched the game. That was actually at MetLife as well, which I didn't realize at that point either. And yeah, so like next day, I'm like, right, I need to know about this now. I need to get all the knowledge that I can get. And it just went from there, started looking into it, did as much research as I could possibly do, started watching games and stuff. And I guess then you get to a point where you think, who am I going to pick? Who's my team? And I've always been a fan of the place, New York. It's somewhere I've always wanted to visit ever since I was a kid. Massive Home Alone fan, which is probably most people of my age
Man, you know
childhood
what?
film.
You and me both. Like that, just the memories I get from watching Home Alone 2. It just
Oh, love
it's
it.
kind of I think that film is genuinely why I fell in love with New York, and
Yeah,
I've had
I agree.
a love for the city ever since. So yeah, we're in the same boat there. I love that.
Yeah, so that was it. So that was the film. Like I say, I wanted to visit New York. It just seemed quite logical. And then I started, obviously, it started to get into draft time at that point, and I took a real liking to Odell coming out of the draft. Really loved all of that stuff going on, and I think I was already probably 90% the way to picking the Giants as a team, and then obviously that kind of tipped me over the edge. And then yeah, that was kind of it. I'm a big fan of history, and I'm a big fan of teams that have a real good history, and like you mentioned earlier on about family and stuff. The Giants always felt like a very much a family organization, and I really liked that from the start. So, yeah, that was it. I was in. I spent the entire off season going back watching old games, learning about old players, all of the greats, Carl Banks, Lawrence Taylor's, all of them. And by the time the season come, I don't think I could have consumed any more
Love
Giants
that.
content if I'd have tried. To be honest, knew nothing about the NFL, but I knew loads about the Giants at that point. So yeah, that was it. That was 10 years ago. And every year it gets deeper and deeper, and for all and more
And it
difficult,
gets sad, it gets
probably.
sadder and sadder. Yeah.
It is, yeah. Unfortunately, but yeah, that's me. That's how we got to the Giants, and 10 years in,
Nice.
still going strong.
Nice. Well, it's always good to hear these different stories about how people got into the team, and into the game as well, because it is still that, like I said, it's that sort of is a neat bit of a niche market over here still, and because it's the time difference, it can make things a bit difficult. But have you been to any of the London games since you've been a fan?
Yeah, well, yeah. I think one of the things you find very quickly is obviously, like you say, it can be a lonely sport to follow, and I think that's where you kind of realize how important the online community is. It's something I sort of got
Massively.
involved in pretty quickly. Just, I think if you don't know anyone who follows the sport, like you say, it can be very lonely, and that online community almost becomes your new family essentially. So yeah, I found
Yeah.
that pretty quickly, and that was kind of epitomized once. I actually made the trip to MetLife last year. First time I'd been in New York, first time to
Nice.
MetLife, and I was welcomed with open arms from Paul, the
Uh,
ambassador for over there.
Paul, the
My
ambassador. Evening, mate.
my brother, yeah, love him. Hello, Paul. Welcomed us with open arms. Had an absolute amazing time at tailgate, and it was just one of the best experiences I've ever had. But the game, unfortunately, wasn't the best. It was the Seahawks game where we got absolutely battered.
Okay.
But other than that, it was one of the best moments of my life for sure.
Yeah, it's nothing like going to a game at MetLife.
No,
I've been to all three London games, luckily, and going to be going to Munich in November as well. But it doesn't beat that feeling of walking up to MetLife and just being in that stadium. It just it's something else. It really is. But yeah, it's cool. It's cool that you went out there for the first time this year.
unbelievable. Yeah, Paul even arranged for us to meet Carl Banks outside the stadium, and he signed my shirt, which
Get
unfortunately
him.
was a Saquon Barkley shirt, which is a bit frustrating. But I don't hold any grudges. But
No.
yeah, and what's amazing is before I'd gone, obviously I knew everything there is to know about MetLife, but you
Yeah.
don't realize it's ranked one of the worst in the NFL, and you kind of
Mhm.
think, well, I wonder what that looks like. And then I've got there and thinking, this is probably one of the most amazing stadiums I've ever seen, and Spurs is
Yeah.
impressive. And how could this be the worst? Like, what do the other ones look like? So
Yeah, I mean, it does kind of get a really sort of bad rap, MetLife, because it doesn't, aesthetically, from the outside, it doesn't look great in
inside
comparison
though,
to
it does.
to something like SoFi Stadium in LA. It just looks unbelievable from the outside. Even the Dallas Cowboys Stadium as well. That from the outside, that it looks quite aesthetically pleasing. And you got Mercedes-Benz Stadium for the Falcons with the sort of the roof that
Fancy
opens up,
roof.
and how cool that is. So aesthetically pleasing, aesthetics wise, it doesn't look great, but it's officially the largest capacity seating stadium in the NFL.
Mm.
Um,
Like you say, I think it's just aesthetics at this point. It doesn't look as
And
pretty as some of the other ones.
No, inside it's like a cathedral and it's amazing and I love it. So
Unbelievable.
I won't hear anything bad said about MetLife.
Me
Um,
neither. That trip
no,
up the escalator was impressive, to be honest.
nice. Before we get into the current season, just wondering, how do you sum up last season as a whole?
One to forget, I guess,
That'll do.
is probably the best way to describe it. Yeah, I mean, it was one of them. Anything that could go wrong did go wrong, and I think it was made worse by the fact that, like, for the first time in quite a while, I was kind of going into it with quite high expectations based on sort of the previous year, and
I
it
think we all
just
were.
it seemed to end almost as soon as it started, which was a bit frustrating. Yeah, it was just one to forget. I did have a bit of fun when we had the Tommy Cutlet situation. I had a few people around, and we had some Cutlet hands printed out and stuck on the wall and stuff, and that was a bit of excitement for a couple of weeks. But in the grand scheme of things, yeah, just forget about it, move on, pretend it didn't happen. Is kind of how I look at it.
Pretty much. I mean, record-wise, it wasn't our worst season in recent history, but just of everything that happened throughout the season, it definitely was one to forget. And like I said, it came down to our third-string undrafted rookie free agent quarterback to actually give us a little bit of excitement throughout the season. So, we really were sort of scraping the bottom of the barrel to get a little bit of entertainment last year. But moving forward into this year, obviously the Giants were on Hard Knocks off season, and we spoke before. Obviously, you've watched it. What was your major takeaway from it?
There was so many things that I enjoyed. I mean, obviously, I really enjoyed the setup, and I hope they continue to do these Hard Knocks. But from a Giants point of view, it was just really nice to see all of the relationships that happen, like off the field. The relationship that Daves and Joe have, and Mara just walking in every now and again and shaking his head a little bit and talking about Saquon and then walking out again. And it was all of the stuff that you just don't get to see, that I really enjoyed, that I took from it. And like the scouting and things like that, where we know how important that is to every organization, but you just don't see that. And to get that level of sort of access to these people, that was the thing that I enjoyed the most from it, I think.
Yeah, I loved the little sort of the focus they did put on the scouts, and it because you totally forget about them, and the fact they were the sort of a focus on I mean 3, maybe even 4 of the episodes, and it was really good to see, like, and to hear their sort of just a little bit more about them and sort of get to know them a bit more, and just to realize the world of scouting is crazy. They're on the road for like 350 days a year, and they get to meet up all as a group once a season, like once a year.
Yep.
And that's on draft day, and it's like it's crazy, it's mad. But yeah, they're definitely an underappreciated group of people, especially by us fans. Obviously they're very much appreciated internally, but yeah, the scouting angle of that was really cool, I thought. But
yeah, it was really good. Like you say, they don't get a lot of airtime, so it was nice to see them shine, and just see all of the hard work that they put in.
Was there anything that surprised you from the series?
I wouldn't say surprised. I guess from my perspective, I've never really thought in as much detail as the show went into around how draft prep is. Like, you kind of, in your mind, you have how it would look and how you think it would be and how they put the boards together and stuff like that. But then when they start bringing out all of the detail and all of the different scenarios that they're considering it, and the fact that it starts way like before the draft in free agency, and how what happens there then affects over here, and how that moves constantly, and just stuff like that. Like, I've never really sat and thought about it too much, so I guess it was just a bit of a shock to see how much is involved in it, really. Even though I kind of knew that would be the case, but then you just don't appreciate it until you see it, I think.
No, it was like, I mean, literally from the day after the Super Bowl, it's like, right, here we go.
That's it.
It was
Start.
And it was the whole process from start to finish. Obviously from, like I said, day after the Super Bowl to end of the draft, and sort of it was just that we could have had so much more than 5 episodes, and obviously there was a lot condensed, and there was a lot of scenes cut because whether they couldn't fit it in or whether there was music playing in the background, so they couldn't play it because of copyright issues. It'd be great to see some outtakes from it. Put it that way. I'd love to see some outtakes.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I listened to. I can't even remember where it was. I think it was on some sort of podcast where they had the producers and things on talking about like how they did it and how they felt about it. And it does sound like there was a hell of a lot of footage that we didn't get to see. So that would be nice if that came out. But they did say actually that they found it actually easier to work on because when they do the in-season ones and the training camps and stuff, they're kind of catching it on the fly and then having to get it ready and sort of release it.
There's had time to.
Yeah, they kind of knew the outcome as well. So when they started editing it and putting it all together, they kind of knew what the outcome of everything was at that point. Whereas when they do the training camp ones, they just kind of pick up what they think's going to be important and hope that's what transpires. So yeah, I think there'll be a lot of stuff that we would love to see that we'll probably never see.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm guessing you're a fan of the Hard Knocks brand itself.
Oh, I love it. Absolutely love it. I'm not so much of a fan of the in-season one. I like the training camp one. I think I've seen every season now. Having gone back and watched a lot of them during multiple off seasons. Not a huge fan of the in-season one. I think it becomes a bit of a distraction for those in it and for me. When there's so much NFL and so much football to watch and so many things to digest, it almost becomes a bit too much. But yeah, I love Hard Knocks. The music itself is enough.
100% agree with that. So the episode 1, the opening title sequence, and then that music starts, and then the Giants logo appears. How sweet was that moment? It was like, we've made it. Hallelujah. Yeah, but you know what? This is going to be John Mara's. I've done Hard Knocks. No more.
Yeah, don't come and ask me that again.
Yeah, we probably won't see an in-season or a training camp with the Giants because he's gone, no, we've done a Hard Knocks. I love the whole series. Yeah, pretty much. I love the whole series. So it was a great watch. And it just makes you want to see more, though, doesn't it? That's the problem.
Oh, 100%. I'm already looking forward to next year, even though it won't be us. I'm just looking forward to get back behind the curtains again.
Yeah, man, definitely. So, obviously a lot of Hard Knocks was spent sort of like in the build up to the draft. Obviously had a bit about free agency at the beginning, but obviously then going into the sort of build up to the draft, and then obviously the draft itself. Out of everyone that we sort of have picked up through the draft and free agency, who do you think is going to potentially make the biggest impact to this team as a whole this season?
It's hard to not say Neighbours. Obviously, everything about him is just elite. Like you can see it already, even just in preseason and in camp, and even when he's finding himself in a situation where he's not exactly getting the best balls, he's still making things happen. So he just feels like one of those players where he's that good, you could kind of drop him anywhere and he'll improve any team. But then Burns on the opposite side of the ball as well, I think is going to also have huge impact, and he's going to allow some of the other players like Dex and Tibbs to make plays and stuff. So I think them combined are going to have such a massive impact. Just hopefully we get some, at very least, average quarterback play to go with it.
Yeah, and I mean, let's just touch on the additions on the offensive line as well, because have you watched the preseason game from the weekend?
Yeah, I've watched it. Yeah.
How nice was it to see Daniel Jones operating in a pocket?
It was unusual. It was very strange.
Very unusual. Yeah.
It was, yeah, and I mean, it didn't start particularly well, unfortunately. But you can be able to see that all the way through camp and stuff as well, especially the camp with the Lions. You could see the difference they were going to make already. That there's much more time there, and hopefully we can at least allow him to see what he can do. I don't really take much from preseason, to be honest. Like, no. He had a rough start to the game the other day, but I mean, he hasn't played in a proper game for so long. These things are going to happen. Even the first 2-3 weeks of the season, I'm expecting to have a similar path. But as long as he can settle in and we can give him that time, I want to see what he can do, to be honest. I want to see what he can do with that time, but then also with weapons downfield. That's what I need to see.
I mean, yeah, you look back at 2022 and it's like, well, we've seen it before. So why can't we see it again from Daniel Jones? You know,
I've been one of the few supporters of him since day one, and I mean there was a point, to be honest, that by the end of last season, sort of heading towards the end of the season and looking ahead to draft, where I was kind of, maybe this is it, maybe this is the time that we need to just move on. But I was never against keeping him as long as we were going to keep him and give him help. I didn't have a problem with that. What I didn't want us to do is keep him and just throw him back in with the same situation he's found himself in, because that's not good for him. It's not good for the team. So yeah, I'm pleased with how it's gone in terms of draft and free agency, and I just want to see him go out there and do what we know he can do.
Definitely, and I mean we've only got 2 weeks now to the beginning of the regular season. You know, what's your it is. It's so close. It's almost we can almost touch it. But what are your expectations going into the season?
It changes on a daily basis, to be honest.
Nice.
I was around draft time. I was like, we're Super Bowl contenders, and then that kind of waned a little bit, which is probably good because you shouldn't really go in. Sorry, being optimistic, but going into seasons with that expectation is not good.
No.
I think, to be honest, I think I see us having a winning record, and I see us being in around 10-7. To be honest, I feel like if things go the way they should go, there's no reason why the team can't put up points. And we know how good the defense is. I have some concerns about cornerback. I hope that gets addressed in the next week or so, because it seems like they're making moves to potentially do something there.
Yeah, we've freed up some money to potentially make a move. So
I'm hoping something happens there, because that's probably one of my big, obviously outside of what we're going to get from Jones, the other concern is that position. So I'm hoping something happens there. But on paper, there's no reason why we can't have a good season. And a good season doesn't necessarily mean to have a playoff run and be looking that far ahead. I just want to see a team where everything's come together and we're ready to go again next year, and then potentially take that last step. But yeah.
Yeah, just competitive football. That's what I want to see. And you know, and it's frustrating when you get blown out in games, and you know the team just looks, you know, the heads are down and they just don't look great like we did last year. But I'm hoping, you know, even if we lose games, I'm hoping that they're close games and that they're not games that we've just been completely trounced and played off the field, because this team I don't see that in this team. I see it's playing some really close games. And you know, if it's a walk-off field goal to lose a game, it's gutting. But at the end of the day, at least we were in the game right up to the final seconds. You know, so I'm feeling hopeful about the season for sure. For sure,
I agree.
But
I think that's definitely the right way to put it. To be honest, like, the players that we've got, the team that we've got settled coaches now. You know, we're in so far with those now. There's kind of no excuses, and I think if we did have games where we were getting those blowouts, you really need to start asking questions about, is the coaching right? Are the players that we've got doing their jobs? Because there's no reason why that should happen with the team that we've got. You can no longer just throw out the excuse of, you know, the O-line's terrible, or we haven't got this player, or we haven't got that player, we don't have a pass rush. You know, all of the excuses that we've had, those don't exist anymore. So we really need to see a response from the team, I think.
Yeah, I think the only thing that might sort of, you know, curtail our sort of hopes and expectations of the season is if we get some really unfortunate injuries, and you know, touch wood, we don't do, you know, we get to keep all the sort of our key players for the whole season, and they can actually perform to the best of, you know, the best of their abilities and help this team out. So right, we're gonna wrap up with some quick fire predictions. You already give me your record for the season, which 10-7. It's above 500. I love it. I'll gladly take that. Even if like I said, even if we don't get a playoff place, I'll gladly take a 10-7 record. If we don't make the playoffs with 10-7, I'd be a little bit disappointed, because we will be very unlucky, and the thing is, we'll be there, we'll be in the mix as well. So we probably would miss out on a head-to-head tiebreak or something like that. But on, you know, we've talked about some of the players that we've brought in on offense this year. And some of the players, you know, existing roster as well. But who this season do you think is going to be the most valuable Giant on offense, in your opinion?
It's got to be Neighbours. It has to be. It has to be Neighbours. Because even if Jones doesn't, if he just plays average, nothing more, I still think Neighbours is the most important weapon on the offense because he'll still make something happen with that. So it's just it's unfortunate that all of our hopes are kind of pinned on him to do what we think he can do, but that's where we are. Unfortunately, we've got a wide receiver one. We have to celebrate. We have to be hopeful.
100%. 100%. And I've not been this excited about a receiver on the Giants since Odell, and
Same.
it's almost like sort of Odell 2.0 sort of thing. And it's
hopefully it ends a bit better than that. That situation.
I hope so. It's scary how similar sort of the comparisons that are made between the two, and just sort of how similar I feel about like him going into the season. So yeah, Neighbours is a huge part of this. Neighbours is a huge part of this team. What about on defense then? Who do you think is your most valuable player on defense?
I'm going to say Burns, actually. I'm really, really, really excited to see what he can do. I was a big fan of him when he was at the Panthers. I think he was quite criminally underrated, to be honest, purely because he was at the Panthers. Obviously, people spoke highly about him, but he was never kind of spoken about in the same way as some of the other players at his position. So I'm kind of hoping he can come and kind of, not just for us, but for the rest of the league, put the league on notice and say, look, I am the best at this position. I can be the best at this position. And I feel like not only will he help with his skills and what he can do, he will unlock other things across that line as well. And just, I think he's going to be a massive impact.
I think he's going to be a game wrecker, potentially going to be a game wrecker. And, he's on a big money contract. He's got to earn that money, but I've got no doubt that he will earn that money because he's so talented and everything he's done in Carolina. I hope he brings it to the table in New York and he shines in New York. I love that.
He's got
Brian
the
Burns.
durability and he's got the professionalism, and I feel like he's what we've been missing. I think, and certainly in defense, cornerback aside, he's probably the missing piece. And let's hope it plays out like
that. And then lastly, who do you think is going to be your surprise package of the season?
Oh, I'm a big Wandale man. I really think Wandale this year is going to have fun. Purely, I mean, I think he's got the talent, and I think, unfortunately, the way that we've played hasn't played well for him. Obviously, he doesn't seem to play as much as he should. And I think now that we've got the deep threat from Neighbours and we've got the deep threat from Hyatt, who's starting to come into his own as well, and obviously Slayton can do that, I just feel that slot space in the middle is going to open up more and more when you've got defenders trying to double up on Neighbours and stuff like that. So I just think Wandale, everything is in place for him to just have a sneaky good season, to be honest. I've been banging that drum for a while. If it doesn't turn out like that, I'm fine. But, if it does, I was one of the first to say it. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, obviously, we've now got, like you said, we've now got a wide receiver one, and there isn't so much pressure on him to perform. And I think he could have him and Hyatt, I think, could both have a sneaky good season if we can protect the quarterback, and then if Dan Jones can play the way Dan Jones can play. So yeah, I love that pick of Wandale. I think he could have a stellar year.
Fingers crossed.
Awesome. Well, that is all the questions I have for you, Shaun. So I really appreciate your time this evening. Thanks very much for joining me. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have.
Yeah, it's been great. I've really enjoyed it. I like coming on talking about Giants football to anyone who'll have me, to be honest. So yeah,
we're glad to have you back. Because we love talking Giants football every week, and we love talking Giants football with other people as well. So we'd no doubt gladly have you back at some point in the future. Are you going to Munich this year?
No, unfortunately not. I'd booked flights and accommodation and didn't get tickets. So that's a bit of a pain. I was going to kind of try and get tickets, but then I was also made aware from my partner that it was my son's 13th birthday on the day of the game. So probably just as well I didn't get tickets because I wasn't aware of it and probably would have been in a bit of trouble. But I'm going to London game, so that'll scratch that a little bit, and I'm hoping to go back to New York in the next couple of years. So it's just one of them, unfortunately.
It is, unfortunately, it's what it is. But life gets in the way sometimes. We can't all, have everything in when it comes to football. But No, it'll be good. We'll be glad to have you back on, mate, at some point soon. It's been
Cool.
great chatting to you this evening. I've enjoyed it. It's great that you've enjoyed it as well. And we hope those that listen and watching as well. We hope you've enjoyed it. Make sure you listen and make sure you like, make sure you subscribe, all that other fun stuff as well. Our social links are in the description below. Shaun, it's been a pleasure. Until next time, we're signing off. Let's go Giants.
Let's go Giants.